Hey boys and girls, Ken Smith Fishing. So today we're going to do the Sunday Bass Champs tournament on the 14th. We caught a big stringer. Before we go there, let's get our spark drawing done for the week. So let's jump right to that, and I'll be right back and we'll finish this up. Okay guys, time for the spark drawing. So by the way, I just got my Bass Champs email. So for the Toledo Bend East Texas division, the next tournament on Toledo Bend, there'll be $8,000 of spark money up for grabs. At the next tournament, that's May 22nd. At the next tournament on Amstead, South Region, $4,000 up for grabs. At the Central Region, that's at LBJ on the 24th. There'll be $6,000 up for grabs at LBJ. And then at the first North Region event on second one, on Ray Roberts on April 10th, there'll be $2,000. So the 10th, $2,000, the 17th, 18th, $4,000. The Central Region, $6,000, and the East Region, $8,000, all kind of scattered there over about 5 weeks. So, by the way, we've had a lot of guys come up at both the weigh-ins and also reaching out to us frustrated because they live in co-ops. They don't get the opportunity to choose their electric provider. And bear with us. I think we've got something worked out to give you guys a chance to win spark money. It's not official yet, but I'm telling you right now, if I post another video later this week, it'll be a real short one that just says how to win spark money. You guys make sure and tune into that because they're really trying to give back to the community, and we know some folks just flat can't be spark customers. So we're trying to get something we're trying to get something fixed up for those folks. So stick around, and by the way, there possibly might even be some Megabass money available too. That's all in the works. That's a teaser. I probably shouldn't say it, but I hope we get all that done this week. And there we go. So let's get a drawing for today, and then we'll get right to the fishing. And let's go with that ticket right there amongst everybody. And that is Michael Perkins in Dallas, Texas. Michael Perkins. You'll be getting an email or a text from me in the next day. Don't throw anything away from Spark Energy because it'll be a $250 gift card somewhere in the next couple of weeks. So there you go, Michael Perkins. And again, if I post another video up this week about Spark, you guys please make sure and watch it because we're trying to get something worked out for you guys. So let's go right back to our fishing video. Here we go. Okay, so kind of the progression of what happened. So Saturday, we drew out boat 185 or 135 or something, but we were way down the list, and we knew where there were a couple of groups of fish pretty far up the lake, but we also knew if we ran to those areas, we were going to be boat 30 or 40 or 50 into those areas. And so we decided just to kind of treat the morning as a pre-fish. And so we started, as we talked about last week, we actually started kind of right there around Buck Bay and didn't catch much and started working our way up the lake, kind of Five Fingers, Veach, Caney, into the mouth of Harvey, and then on up above the 147 bridge. And we got up there with a limit, but not very much. And then fortunately you saw us cull a couple of fish there once we got into that area. And Sunday was a different story. So Sunday was a trailing event. So we knew that, and we were not, matter of fact, we left with, I think we could start fishing at 6:30 or 7:30, whichever it was. I mean, we left the ramp 10 minutes before that. We weren't trying to get in there and set on a spot for an hour beforehand because, again, we knew it was going to be crowded. But we got into an area and we kind of found a little hole in that area and we started fishing. And Saturday, most of our fish had come on. Actually, I'll post them right here. Really a couple of 3 or 4 baits. Moonpie was throwing a newer Yozuri Rattling Vibe in that color right there. And then he caught the big fish on a 6 cents in this color right here. And I had caught a couple of smaller fish. Actually, one of the 5 we weighed in on an A-rig, which I've had several questions about it. It's that Shane's A-rig, Shane's Baits A-rig. It's called the Fifth Element. I'll post what that looks like right there so you guys get a look at that. And on that particular bait, I was throwing, and I really kind of go back and forth. And I should have a preference because one of them's one of my sponsors, but I don't. I go back and forth between the small 6 cents paddle tail swim bait and a Zoom Super Fluke. And it's kind of whatever I grab a hold of. I like them both, so I throw them both. There is a difference. The Zoom is a little wider wobble than the than the 6 cents bait is, but again, I go back and forth, and I'm continuing to throw it on that little tiny super sharp bite me ball head jig, and I'll put links to all this in the description below for any of these baits you want to check out. And I do that for several reasons. As you guys know, if you've watched me for a while, I throw this rod, I throw it on a big Super Duty 3 rod with an extra wide loose spool, but I throw it on 20-pound Tatsu fluorocarbon. So when I hang it up, I mean, when you hang that thing up, you got over 20 bucks hung up. And with those little wire hooks, I can pull them free. Usually, a lot of times you can jiggle them free, but even when you can, a lot of times I can straighten a hook out and get most of my bait, or get all my bait back. I just got to replace a hook. I like the way it throws better on 20 versus throwing on cord. And I think it's quieter coming through the water. I think I get more bites on it. So those are the baits I typically use. And we had thrown a big swim bait a little bit. And again, kind of two baits. We were throwing what we've historically thrown, which is the Strike King 4.75-inch rage tail. But now 6 cents has a bait out called a whale. And I've been throwing it some too. So we were kind of going back and forth between those. And we caught a few fish on those Saturday, but they were still eating the trap pretty good. So let's start right here with a little bit of fishing. And I'll come back then and tell you why we made this decision to change what we were doing and kind of the result of that. Held on to the glove. Big group of fish now. I carried a 13-incher around the other day for 2 hours in the BFL. Okay, so what you saw there's a boat, and that's actually the O'Connors set up directly in front of me. And I mean, I stayed probably 70, 80 yards away from them. They were there really early. They got in there and pulled down on that spot. I had a guy off my starboard side, I had a guy off my port side, and I had about 4 or 5 boats. And by the way, on the other side of the O'Connors, there were 6 or 7 more boats. And then I had 4 or 5 boats kind of circling around behind me. And we're fishing in that area, and we just consistently kept getting bites or slaps. Now, by the way, you're not going to hear it in this video because I record over stuff the way I record. But Moon Pie and I fight like a couple that have been married for 40 years. And I was a little frustrated with Moon Pie. He had not changed the hooks out on that 6 cents bait. They were still those triple grip style hooks, which I don't like on a rattle bait. I want a round bend hook. And the argument you don't hear was, he said, well, they're not eating it good. And my response to him was, that's why you throw that round bend, because any one of those fish that slapped his bait or that he had on for a second and lost could have been a 6, 8, a 10, 12-pound fish that if you hook them on the outside of the mouth, face, you know, Newberry caught a 6-pounder with me, hooked in the dorsal fin a few years ago. He caught a 9-pounder the week before the BFL the other day that he hooked in the side, all because he's throwing that round bend hook. So It took me almost the entire day. I actually pulled my hook box out and threw it at Moon Pie's feet at one point, trying to get him to change those hooks. And I was frustrated, and he was frustrated too. And nobody wants to sit down and take the time in the middle of the day to change hooks out. But we had a lot of slaps. And so at Rayburn, my experience tells me that those fish will start out eating a trap and a square bill and a chatterbait. Chatterbait maybe earlier than the other two. The coldest water, I think, a lot of times for me is the best chatterbait bite. And then they'll quit biting it, and suddenly they'll be on a different bait, and then they'll quit biting it and they'll be on a different bait. Which is why, as I told you guys Saturday, we kept rotating through baits. I told you I threw a jerkbait a bunch, didn't get bit, threw a square bill a bunch, had one good bite on a square bill. I just was rotating through those baits. But when those fish started slapping that trap, I knew it was either that the water temp had gotten to the level they didn't like it, that they had moved shallower where it gets really hard to throw that rattle bait, or they had just heard so many rattle baits they were still mad at them. They'd still run up there and slap them, but they wouldn't eat them. So what I did was I told Moon Pie, I said, I'm gonna back out of this crowd. And I kind of looked around, and there was a void in the boats of maybe 2 or 3 acres back behind us, and I backed out and I got into that void. I turned off all of our electronics, and we were basically drifting through that area. I had my trolling motor on 1, so it's just spinning like that, just keeping us moving. And I picked up a big rod, a 20-pound Seaguar Invisex fluorocarbon, and put on that big swim bait, that 4 point. And I believe I caught that fish on that 4.75 inch Strike King, if I remember right. It might have been on the whale tail, and you'll see right here why I can't tell you for sure. So this is that first bite. This is probably only our second fish, but the first bite when we backed out of that crowd. Yeah, that's what I got. So doing this as much as you do it, you have card issues, you have camera issues. I was sick when I looked at this footage. That card corrupted when Moon Pie goes to net that fish. And I lost hours of footage not knowing that card was not recording. When I pulled it up, it just shows them as files with no content. It shows file after file of more fish we caught that day with no content. Luckily, I caught another 10-pounder last year, so I've caught 2 10-pounders since June of last year. So in the last 9 months, I got one on camera, and I got almost one on camera. Now, the proof I do have that I caught that fish is this picture right here. So that's a 1054, and I'm going to show you that second fish. That's about a 7 I caught a little here in just a minute. And then this certificate, I have submitted this to be a ShareLunker. By the way, guys, so I've not talked about this much. Remember, Spark Bass, Spark Fishing is paying basically, if you will, a bounty for Spark customers who submit and get a bass approved through ShareLunker. 8-pounders $250, 10-pounders $500, 13 pounders 1,000 plus. I submitted this fish. As soon as it's approved by ShareLunker, it's a $500 additional payday. And we got 9 lakes that we're having a big bass event on this year, all year. Whoever submits the biggest fish, that's got to be a Spark customer, in Rayburn, Toledo, Fork, Palestine, Ray Roberts, Amstead, Falcon, Cedar Creek, and there's one more. I'll post it right there at the bottom of the page. Then they're going to win another $2,000 on top of the $250 or $500 or $1,000 they've already won. And you know how many fish have been submitted on those 9 lakes so far by Spark customers? Well, 0 right now, but it'll be 1 pretty soon because I'm going to submit my fish for Rayburn. There's no way I should win Rayburn with a 1050. So you Spark customers, or you guys who aren't Spark customers who fish a lot, you need to be signing up so that you can submit a fish, because that's going to be another $18,000 Spark's going to give away this year. So anyway, off my Spark thing. So I don't have that footage, but we did leave there with a limit. We've got a 10 pounder in the bag. We've got about 22, 23 pounds at this point. And we go to another area that once again is packed. Matter of fact, we idled up to 3 guys sitting throwing at a spot, and we had to go by them to get to where I wanted to go. So I turned the big motor off, picked up the trolling motor, started talking to the guys. I know a couple of them. As we fished by them, one of them caught a 6 pounder literally out from under our boat. It was the craziest thing. There's just a big pile of fish in this spot. We moved back outside of them about 200, 250 yards, giving them and the next boat, which I believe were the Votes, was the other boat that was in there, Bob Vote, I think. Forgive me, Bob, if that wasn't you. And we got on the back side of them about 100 yards, and this happened. Huh? Now, so we caught a few more fish that we'll stick in here at the end, but that was pretty much the best part of our stringer. That got us to 27 pounds-ish. Excuse me, that's not right. That got us to right at 25 pounds. And we stayed in that area for a while. We actually were sharing another area, which we didn't know it until we got in there, with the guys who actually won the first day, the 30-pound stringer, which is another spot that I think there's some fish off that, but it doesn't really matter. And we then left there and went back to one of the areas we had been in earlier. And unfortunately, with just a couple of minutes left, the same thing happened that happened the first day. And this one was even crazier. I turned the camera off, I strapped down one side of my rods, I'm still fishing with the other side, and a boat where we are, kind of like the other spot, you've got to come right by us to get out of this one particular little area. And a guy idles by us. Now, and that's fine because it was the end of the day, and I probably would have done the same thing. Moon Pie throws that Yozuri. Now he's throwing my Yozuri, which is the old red with good hooks on it. He throws it in their bubbles and catches a 4-pounder, 4.5. And we call a 2.5, and that gets us to our final weight of 27.43. So it was a very fun day. We caught a lot more fish, unfortunately, than what I'm able to show you guys, which is depressing to have that kind of day and not have the footage to share with you guys. And I wish I did. I certainly wish. By the way, I will admit, and a bunch of guys can confirm this, I am really good about being sneaky and catching fish and getting them in the boat and not letting guys around me know that I caught that fish. When I caught that 10.5, I yelled like a little girl. It was just so big, and if you guys saw that footage earlier, that first scoop Moon Pie makes at that fish, he misses that fish and actually hit that fish with the net, and that fish darted under the boat, and I thought we'd lost the fish. Very seldom do you hit a fish with a net and not lose that fish, but that fish went under the boat. I had already backed my drag down when I saw how big she was, and I let her pull. I got her back up, and he dipped nutted her, and I hollered like a little girl. So I guess if this stuff doesn't still excite you, you probably shouldn't be doing it anymore, but I was fired up. So that's our day. It was a fun day. We won $3,000 from Bass Champs, and we won $6,000 in Spark money. And if you haven't heard, Spark made the decision right at the tournament site that since I was their representative, they were going to put another $6,000 back into the East Division and allow guys to fish for that money again. So now the Toledo Bend tournament in May, the highest finishing Spark customer in the top 10 is going to win $8,000. And if nobody wins it there, it's going to roll the championship where any division can win it. So we need some of our East Division guys to get signed up and one of them to get a top 10 here, because there's now been 10 in the first, 10 in the second, 10 in the third. So there's now been 12 teams that could have won that money before we won it, had they been Spark customers. So it's good money. It's fun stuff, and it was a great weekend. We won $10,000 between Friday and Saturday, and I'd love to do that every single weekend. I would probably not be selling insurance very much anymore if we could do that. So anyway, that's our weekend. We've got more stuff coming up. I'm going to get to go do some fishing here in the next couple of days at some other places. And the ballistic review, if I've not got the grading up yet, it'll be right behind this video. I've already recorded it. I'm just not sure the order of when we're going to get these up based on when Jared can get the editing done. And by the way, Jared also asked me to pass along, we heard you guys loud and clear on the music in the video. He's just playing around trying to find some other stuff to add to the videos, and you guys didn't like it, so we're pulling it right back out. So guys, we always appreciate the feedback, good or bad. Tell us what you like, and we're going to build these videos because you guys are the ones who watch them. I mean, I watch them too, but we're trying to make them for you guys to enjoy, so tell us what you enjoy. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys, gosh, on the water again here real soon. Thanks.